Hello students, I am Sabrina Wilson working at St. Vincent Pallotti School, Kamchi, Nagpur. Welcome back to our social studies class. So today we'll learn the third chapter of history, the Delhi Sultans, part 1, grade 7th NCERT. So students, in our previous chapter, New Kings and Kingdom, we have learnt about many dynasties which were ruling in different parts of the Indian subcontinent. We mainly learned some dynasties which were ruling in the southern part of our India. For example, Chola dynasty. And today in this video lecture, we will learn about all those dynasties which were ruling in the northern part of our India during the 12th century to 15th century. Let us see the introduction part of this lesson. The chapter is about the Delhi Sultan who came to power in the beginning of the 13th century after the reign of Muhammad Ghori. Muhammad Ghori was a foreigner who hailed from Afghanistan, conquered the northern part of our India where Delhi is situated, and this Muhammad Ghori was defeated by Prithviraj Chauhan, who was from Rajput dynasty. During the 12th century, Delhi transformed into an important commercial hub under the reign of Tomars and Chauhans. When Tomars and Chauhans, who were from Rajput dynasty, were ruling this northern part of our India, Delhi became important commercial hub. Commercial hub means Delhi became important for trade and business purpose. In the beginning of 13th century, Delhi was made the capital of the subcontinent after the foundation of the Delhi Sultanate was laid. In the beginning of 13th century, Delhi became the capital of the subcontinent. What is subcontinent? Subcontinent includes the country like Bangladesh, Bhutan, Nepal, Pakistan and Sri Lanka, which are nearby India. So in the subcontinent, Delhi became the capital during the 13th century. The city was inhabited by many Jaina merchants who also constructed a number of temples. Coins known as Delhiwal were minted here and had a wide circulation. Jaina merchant is the group of some merchants who used to buy and sell things, and they constructed so many temples those times. And coins which were minted during those time in Delhi was known as Delhiwal. Delhi Sultanate played a most vital role in the transformation of Delhi into a capital which controlled a vast area of the subcontinent. Delhi Sultanate played very important role to make Delhi the capital of the subcontinent. So let us see the rulers of Delhi. So as I said earlier, Muhammad Ghori was defeated by Prithviraj Chauhan, who was from Rajput dynasty. So Rajput dynasty ruled Delhi from 1130 to 1192. And who were the rulers of Rajput dynasty? Anangapala and Prithviraj Chauhan. Then after the decline of Rajput dynasty, early Turkish rulers took over the charge of Delhi. This dynasty is known as Slave dynasty. We'll be learning later about this in detail. So this dynasty ruled from 1206 to 1219. And who were the rulers of this dynasty? Qutbuddin Aibak, Samshuddin Iltutmish and his daughter Raziyya, Ghiyasuddin Balban, who was a slave and became a ruler. Then comes Khalji dynasty, which ruled from 1290 to 1320. And the rulers from this dynasty are Jalaluddin Khalji and Alauddin Khalji. Students, have you watched Padmavati movie where Ranveer Singh is playing the role of Alauddin Khalji? and he kills his uncle Jalaluddin Khalji and takes over the throne of Khalji dynasty. We'll mainly learn about the administration of Alauddin Khalji and Muhammad Tughlaq in this chapter. Then after the Khalji dynasty, Tughlaq dynasty takes the throne of Delhi Sultanate, which ruled from 1320 to 1414. And the rulers of this dynasty were Ghiyasuddin Tughlaq, Muhammad Tughlaq, Firuz Shah Tughlaq. We'll mainly learn about the administration of Muhammad Tughlaq, who was called a wiseful king, because though he was well-educated person, he sometimes made some decision and did things foolishly and was a failure king. We will learn that how he changed the capital from Delhi to Daulatabad, which is in present-day Pakistan, which is present-day Maharashtra, and again came back to the Delhi, which was a failure plan made by Muhammad Tughlaq. After Tughlaq dynasty, Sayyid dynasty ruled the Delhi from the year 1414 to 1451, and the rulers of this dynasty was Khizr Khan. Then after Sayyid dynasty, Lodi dynasty took control over the Delhi and ruled from the year 1451 to 1526, and the ruler of this dynasty was Bahlul Lodi. So dear students, total 5 dynasties which ruled Delhi Sultanate. What are those 5 dynasties? Early Turkish rulers, Khalji dynasty, Tughlaq dynasty, Sayyid dynasty and Lodi dynasty. These 5 dynasties makes the Delhi Sultanate. Rajput dynasty doesn't come under the Delhi Sultanate. It is shown because after Rajput dynasty, here all this, the Delhi Sultanate dynasties and all comes. Concept of this lesson. First, finding out about the Delhi Sultans from garrison town to empire. A closer look administration and consolidation under the Khaljis and Tughlaqs. The Sultanate in the 15th and 16th century. So in this video lecture, we will learn only these 2 concepts. First, finding out about the Delhi Sultans. Second, from garrison town to empire. Finding out about the Delhi Sultans means we will see that through which sources we come to know about the history of Delhi Sultanate. Through inscriptions, coins and architecture. So through inscriptions, through coins and through architectures we come to know about the history of Delhi Sultanate. Through valuable history is called a tariq. So what is tariq? Tariq is a manuscript where the history of Delhi Sultans was written. How did they prepare this tariq? Tariq is the plural of tariq. They first prepared the paper, then wrote text on the papers, and for highlighting some important points, they used to melt gold on the text. And then finally, they prepared the binding of this paper. So in this way, they prepared a tariq. Histories were written in Persian, the language used under the Delhi Sultans. Tariq were mostly written in which language? In Persian language. The authors of tariq were learned men, administrators, poets and courtiers. So who were the authors of tariq? Learned men, administrators, poets and courtiers. The authors lived in cities, mainly Delhi. So these authors, where did these authors live? They lived in city area, mainly in Delhi. They wrote histories in the hope of rich reward. So these authors wrote history to impress the king and get reward from the king. These authors had their views on birthright and gender distinction. Birthright here means they wished that the king's son only should rule the kingdom after the king's death. And gender distinction here means these authors wished that the rulers of Delhi should be a king, not a queen. They advised the rulers to maintain an ideal social orders. So these authors made sure that kings should follow ideal social orders in his kingdom, and that's what they used to advise to the king. Their views were not supported by everybody. Many people didn't like their views and they didn't support to their views. In 1236, Iltutmish's daughter Razia became Sultan. MINHAJ-I-SIRAJ, though acknowledged that she was more capable than her brothers, yet she was not acceptable as rulers. So we'll later learn in detail that how Razia Sultan ruled effectively and what MINHAJ-I-SIRAJ thought about Razia. She was removed from the throne in 1240. So means 4 years she ruled Delhi Sultanate. The circle of justice. So these 5 points are interconnected and they form a circle of justice. First, king cannot survive without soldiers. Means king needs soldiers to run effectively his kingdom. Second, soldiers cannot live without salaries. Soldiers need salary for their work. Salaries come from revenue collected from peasants. So, from where does this salary come? Salary comes from the revenue. Revenue means taxes collected from farmers. Fourth, peasants pay revenue when they are happy. So, when the farmers are happy and prosperous, they can pay the taxes easily. Fifth, this happens when the king promotes justice and honest governance. So, all this happens when the king promotes justice and honest governance. So, this circle of justice repeats just like a circle and they form these 5 points form a circle of justice. What MINHAJ-I-SIRAJ thought about Razia? First, he thought that the queen's rule went against the social order created by God. In his opinion, women were supposed to be subordinate to men. What is the meaning of subordinate? It means someone who is subordinate to you has a less important position than you and has to obey you. So women were given less important position than men and has to obey men. So MINHAJ-I-SIRAJ thought that queen's rule went against the social order created by God. He therefore asked a question that in the register of God's creation, since her account did not fall under the column of men, how did she gain from all of her excellent qualities? On her inscriptions and coins, Razia mentioned that she was the daughter of Sultan Iltutmish. In contrast, Queen Rudramadevi changed her name on her inscriptions and pretended that she was a man. Another queen, Didda, ruled in Kashmir. Her title comes from Didi or elder sister. From garrison town to empire, the expansion of the Delhi Sultanate. First, the Delhi Sultan rarely went beyond heavily fortified towns occupied by garrisons. Garrison means soldiers and garrison towns means a fortified settlement with soldiers. So what is the meaning of fortified? To fortify a place means to make it stronger and more difficult to attack, often by building a wall or ditch around it. This is the picture of garrison town and around you can see there is a wall to protect it from the attack. Second, controlling garrison town was extremely difficult. Why? Because rebellion, war, and bad weather snapped communication routes. Means they made so many garrison towns and they were facing problems to communicate all these garrison towns due to rebellion, war, and bad weather. So that's why it was difficult for them to control these garrison towns. Delhi authority was also challenged by Mongol invasion. So who were Mongol? Mongol were some nomadic peoples of Mongolia, or we can call them Chinese people also, and they wanted to conquer the land of Delhi Sultanate. Fifth, the Delhi Sultanate barely survived these challenges. Its expansion occurred during the reign of Balban, Alauddin Khalji, and Muhammad Tughluq. Delhi Sultanate started expanding its boundary to southern part also during the reign of Balban, Alauddin Khalji, and Muhammad Tughluq. The first set of campaigns aimed at consolidating the hinterlands of the garrison towns. So first they started consolidating the hinterlands of the garrison towns. Consolidate means unite into one, and hinterlands means the land adjacent to the city or port that supply it with goods and services. The second expansion occurred along the external frontier of the Sultanate. Second expansion occurred to consolidate the external frontier of the Sultanate, means the land which was not the part of Delhi Sultanate. So firstly they consolidated the internal part of the Delhi Sultanate, and secondly they consolidated the external part, all these external part of the Delhi Sultanate, like expanding their frontiers to the southern part of India. By the end of Tughlaq's reign, the armies of Delhi Sultanate had marched across a large part of the subcontinent. So by the end of Tughlaq's reign, they were able to cover all the large part of the subcontinent. They had defeated the rural armies and seized cities. So how did they conquer all this large part? By defeating the rural armies of every region and bringing them under their control. So goodbye students. See you in my next video lecture with the second part of this chapter, where we will learn the administration and consolidation under the Khalji and Tughluq. Goodbye. Take care.